Hey everyone, just a short video here on the Diablo 3 beta. Before I get started, I just want to do a quick thanks to Jesse at OMFGcata. Long story short, he did a pretty ridiculous Deckard Cain impression competition a few weeks ago, and I was lucky enough to be picked as a beta key recipient from that, so thanks Jesse for making this video possible. The video itself is just a quick run on my monk. Actually kind of came out as a speed run unintentionally. I originally wanted to do this as my wizard, but because of the fact she's not max level and I just kept getting bad spawns with the floors, the videos kept being longer than 15 minutes, so I went with the monk because he's max level, he kind of just plows through stuff, and he's got some movement speed buffs, so yep, it came out to be around 9 minutes or so on this character, which was a little bit better. So on this video, I'm just going to cover kind of a whole bunch of random stuff, nothing really focused, so sorry if you're looking for that. Firstly, impressions of the characters so far, the classes. They're all pretty much fun. I'd say so far, probably the monk and the wizard are my favorites. The only one that wasn't a whole ton of fun, I would say, would be the demon hunter. The resources there is just a little bit messed up. So Demon Hunter basically has two resources, and one is for damage dealing abilities, the other is for a lot of utility stuff. Long story short, the damage dealing ability resource gets used a lot more than the other one, and you usually just end up waiting for it to regenerate. So I think Blizzard actually came out and said that they were going to rework that system and make it a little bit more like a system where you spend one and that generates the other. So it would be pretty nice if they updated the beta so we can try that out and see how that goes. But besides that, all the classes are pretty much fun, like I said. I know one of the things that a lot of people weren't too happy about with Diablo 3 was the removal of skill points. And, at first I was kind of agreeing with those people, but after a little bit of thought, I think that was probably a really good idea, maybe one of the best ideas they've actually had with this. If you look back at Diablo 2, a lot of the people that played it competitively, if you want to call it that, or seriously, they basically pumped all of their points into one or two skills, Frozen Orb, Meteor, Hammer, Zeal, whatever you want to call it. And, that kind of just makes it so you just spam those two abilities over and over. And to me, that doesn't really make it the most exciting gameplay in the world. So the fact that you got rid of skill points removes that and kind of makes things a little bit more spicy. The other thing is the addition of runestones kind of makes it so every ability is really 5 abilities in one. And if you haven't checked out yet, I would actually suggest going to the Diablo 3 skill calculator that Blizzard has on their website and kind of looking around and seeing how the different runestones affect your abilities. It's pretty cool. I could go on and on about it, but like I said, it really makes the abilities quite different once you modify them. So, I think there's just going to be so many crazy builds, and it's going to be really fun when the game comes out, just watching to see what people come up with. I've got some ideas for myself right now, and, it's just going to be really fun going through and testing all those builds, especially between, PvE and PvP. You've just got so many options there. Plus with the gearing, I mean, it's just going to be ridiculous. I'm really looking forward to it. So, some of the things that I like so far, besides that removal of the skill points, is just the gameplay in general. It's very smooth. Unlike Diablo 2, you've just got a little bit more to do here instead of running around just using that one ability over and over. I kind of like the idea that you can swap your skills out. I think that makes it kind of neat because you can kind of have a strategy for what you're going to be facing. So if you're coming up against a boss, maybe you want to do some more survivability stuff. If you're going against, just regular dungeon trash, you can do a lot of AEs and things like that. I think it's a pretty cool system. I'm not sure if they're ever going to do anything where they put a cooldown on how you can change those skills or what, but I kind of like it the way it is right now, just being able to, before you go into a fight, go ahead and change those abilities out. Not that you can't do it during a battle, but it just makes a little bit more sense. Some of the things that I don't like so far are, it's pretty far and few between. It's hard to say if it's because this is the beginning of the easiest act, but it seems like there's a lot of places where there's just not a lot of monsters. I think it's probably going to be resolved, once you get into Act 2, Act 3, or it's Nightmare and higher. You'll probably see more monsters and things like that. But, it's just something I've noticed from the really short content that they gave us for the beta. The other thing is the difficulty, which I think is along the same lines. It's just kind of easy. Um, but like I said, it's the first act of the easiest difficulty, so it's probably going to ramp up from there. Um, so hopefully the game comes out within the next few months. I am really looking forward to it. Personally, I'm going to go pretty much straight to hardcore, I think. I did a lot of hardcore in Diablo 2, and this is one of those things where once you try it, it's really hard to go back. I really like the idea with hardcore where pretty much every decision you make is an important one. If you can lose your character at any moment, then it makes you put a lot of thought in the game, and I just think it's a really cool system. There's a lot at stake, so I'm really looking forward to that. No idea if they're going to do hardcore PvP. That would just be really interesting. Um, it would be pretty ridiculous, and I'm not really sure how much attention or how many people would play that, but it seems like it would be pretty cool. But I don't think they have any formal announcements on that yet. I am really looking forward to the PvP in general. I think it's going to be really cool, just building all these different wacky combinations of class builds and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's just going to be a retarded amount of fun. I'm really looking forward to it, as if you can't tell. So some of the other things that are going on here, just some really quick notes. The destructible environment stuff is around. It doesn't really hurt you when you do it, so if you knock over a gigantic wall and it lands on you and your companion or mercenary, it doesn't do any damage to you. It's kind of a minor addition. I think it's kind of a little gimmick thing, but it's kind of fun. Same thing with the little bonuses you get. So, if you kill a bunch of monsters with a wall that you knock over, or if you kill a ton of monsters in a combo, they'll give you little XP bonuses based on that. Those are kind of neat. You don't really get a ton out of it, but I can see some people having fun with that. So here in the run, I'm getting pretty close to Leoric. This is just a spot where you get to destroy those pillars that spawn skeletons. And the Leoric fight himself, it's nothing too crazy. I think it's mainly just because it's the first boss of the game. Just kind of runs around and spawns some ads and melees you a bit. He's a little bit challenging if it's your first time going through. You get to use potions and all that kind of fun stuff, but as you're going to see here in a couple minutes, I can kind of just sit there and kind of just tank him just because of the way I built my character and because I'm a little bit over level. So another thing that I think is going to be really, really fun is the crafting system. In Diablo 2, you had a lot of cases where the market just got flooded with stuff. So the ability to take your uniques, your set items, anything decent, break it down, and make some really killer trade skill stuff out of it is going to be awesome. And those items that you make, they're all going to have random stats on them, so it's going to be a whole ton of different items that you can create, and it's just going to be nuts. There's going to be so much stuff going around. My thoughts on the auction house, I think that's a cool thing. The real money auction house, I think it's a good thing that they added it. The currency system, Diablo 2 was just broken, and nobody really traded within the game. A lot of people used forums and forum gold if they wanted to do serious trades, and if anyone actually bought anything with real money, they did it, from these weird, crazy, far out East Asian companies that, you always kind of, I guess, run a little gamble of losing your money when you deal with those guys. But so yeah, I like having Blizzard controlling that because they're not going to rip you off. But yeah, you can see here, kind of just demolish the Skeleton King. And I think the way it works is the first time you kill him, he's got an increased chance to drop rare items. So right there I get a bunch of blues, even though I've got some pretty decent magic find on this guy. Really quickly, the additions that they did with the two utility items, the Nephilim Cube and the Cauldron of Jordan. Those are pretty cool. Just not having to run back and forth to town all the time. Being able to do that stuff on the fly is nice. I was a little bit apprehensive of that first. I almost kind of think there's a little bit of necessary work that has to be done in a game. If you make everything way too easy, it just takes away a little bit of the immersion. And yeah, I was a little bit worried about that, but it doesn't seem to be bothering me too much now the game is out. So not too big of a deal there. So here is the trade skill area where you can make stuff. Nothing too complicated. You break down items, you get your different resources, and then you can use them to build new items. From what I understand, the way they want to do it is the best sets of gear in the end game are going to be mixes of crafted items and fine items, which should be pretty cool. I like the idea of nobody just having this one set that's the perfect set. Just the way the game works, it's going to make things a little bit more original. So I'm really looking forward to that. The stash in this game is shared across all characters, and if you're on one character, you've got access to all the different gold on the other characters. So that's pretty cool too. So there's no more muling. Um, so yeah, I just made some pretty cool gloves there. Um, just about to run out of time here, so yeah, I mean the game so far is really cool. I enjoy it, and hopefully you guys like this vid.